I mean, going back in the archives and watching some stuff.
See, what we need to do, we need to have a series where we watch old wrestling together. And
us and a million other people have already done
I don't care because I want to watch old wrestling.
Well, there's plenty out there, and I've dipped my toe in the pool of a few things. Like there was and some new wrestling. This is sort of weird. They had a match the other night. It was Sami Callihan against a fellow named Eddie Edwards. I've actually seen Eddie Edwards perform live. A very good technical wrestler. And they'd set up a spot where Eddie Edwards was down, and he had a folding chair on his chest. And Sami Callihan had a ball bat, a proper aluminum bat. He reared back, and what the gimmick was going to be was going to whack the seat of the chair. Right? And I guess the pressure would cave in Eddie Edwards' chest or whatever. But what actually happened was the chair was a little bit slanty, and the ball bat hit the chair, slid off the seat, and then hit Eddie Edwards in the face.
Oh my gosh!
And I mean, at full power, and jacked Eddie Edwards' face up. And so there's a lot of.
What year is that?
Now it just. It happened.
Was that on Botchamania?
It just taped. Well, I don't know if that's not really a botch. It's more like an attempted murder, or manslaughter. Yeah, it was. So sometimes wrestling is a little bit too far. But there's a big show coming up in Ironton, and there's a bunch of I mean, not huge guys, but guys that we kind of like, and some new guys we haven't seen before. So me and Teresa might make our first trip down to Ironton, Ohio, to see some wrestling, to see how that goes. Since we've kind of we've seen everything else. There's no more midgets. We've seen everybody else.
You've already seen the hardcore extreme.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen that too. So, but yeah,
I'm telling you, we should do a whole anthology of every Giant Haystacks match on YouTube.
No, Giant Haystacks wrestled in the U.S. Did you know that?
I can't believe that.
No, he did. And you know what his name was? Loch Ness.
Really?
Yeah. He was horrible.
Well, he wasn't great as Giant Haystacks either, but that's part of his charm.
No. There was another guy, almost a contemporary of this guy, called the Yeti. He was a huge 7-foot tall mummy.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeti. I don't know why they called him the Yeti.
Maybe they didn't know what Yeti meant.
Well, he is Yeti to learn any wrestling. He's horrible. And Giant Haystacks also horrible.
Who do you think is the all-time worst wrestling superstar of all time?
The way you phrase that is high comedy.
Yeah.
You mean, are you talking about someone that worked full-time or someone that just maybe had like one match?
No, I'm talking about somebody that made appearances in like video games and like...
Boy, man. All-time worst wrestler of all time. That appeared in video games?
Yeah.
Oh, God, man. Virgil comes to mind. He's horrible, and I know he was in WrestleFest in the background of a scene, so I would put him in there. Most guys that appeared in video games in the old days, they didn't really put a bunch of duds in there, So the worst wrestlers I ever saw live were all guys at the local shows that were just horrible.
What about somebody like Goldberg? I mean,
Goldberg was not bad. He was great.
He was not a bad wrestler.
His greenness made him awesome. Spike Dudley was awesome, Brutal. What are you talking about? Doink was Maniac Matt Bourne. He was a hell of a wrestler. But unfortunately, there were other Doinks that weren't as talented as him. So I'm going to give those guys a pass. And I don't know who the other ones were. Steve Lombardi was one. There were a bunch. There are plenty. If you ever watch the old NWA 1980 shows, they had these jobbers come out, and these jobbers were just the worst. I don't know where they got these guys. Like, they never had a match. They didn't know how to run on the ropes. They didn't know how to bump. They didn't know how to do anything. And then they'd stick them in there like the Road Warriors. And the Road Warriors just come out and just gang beat them and just murder these poor, that was one of the best parts of watching the old wrestling, is to see where they got these decrepit. They were all skinny, fat,
Do you think they were
pale.
all like local guys that were just sort of...
I heard that one of the wrestlers would bring them in from like Alabama or something, like his students or whatever. But I mean, they must have not paid the tuition or something. Like I said, they were all skinny, fat, balding, pasty. They would come in and just get destroyed. I mean, destroyed. Now, there were a couple of job guys that were really good. And so the guys wanted to work with, like the Mulkeys, or George South, who's George South's wrestling for ASW this weekend, actually. But he was a classic jobber from back in the day. I don't know if they had jobbers overseas like they did here, where just like guys who just got murdered every week. They got no offense and just got killed.
They're kind of like the who did the Harlem Globetrotters play?
The Washington Generals.
Yeah.
But the Generals at least score a few baskets. It'd be like the Washington. It'd be like if the Globetrotters came out, scored all the baskets, and then at halftime they went over and put the boots to the Generals. That's what.
So you're talking about the flunkies. These flunkies.
My pitch.
They never even they never landed a blow.
I mean, they might maybe get like a side smack or something. I mean, some of the guys that they really like, they would give them some, but most of the time they just get murdered. Depends on who you're fighting. Like the rowers would come out and just kill you. You had no choice. You just get murdered.
It would be interesting to talk to one of those guys now and just say, what was it like being a flunky back in the day?
I've listened to this like I told you the story about the Midnight Express, the Mulkeys. They went to the Mulkeys' hometown. And it was for the U.S. title, and they packed this little auditorium, and it was the main event. And so the Midnight Express went in there, and they said everyone in the crowd, because the Mulkeys were these two pale, pasty, white-haired guys. They looked like albinos.
Like Edgar Winter sort of
They
thing.
were like fat loser Edgar Winters, like two of them, and they were just losers. But everyone, that Cornette said he looked at the crowd, it was like a million pasty losers out there, and they were all related to the Mulkeys. They were going to murder him, and they said that they were going to go to a time limit draw, and they said the ring announcer was so sure, or the bell guy was so sure the Mulkeys were going to win any minute, he wouldn't ring the bell.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So they had to screw over the Mulkeys and pin them, and they literally went out and jumped in like a waiting car, and as a thousand pasty white freaks chased them like zombies, coming down the street. You can't make that stuff up. They said the Mulkeys both smoked, so one time they went to the show and they wouldn't let the Mulkeys lose. They kept picking them up, and they were both gasping for air because they never been in a match more than like 5 minutes because they're jobbers.
Right.
They went like 15 minutes. They were begging to be pinned. They wouldn't pin them.
Man, that's great.
I know, man. I love it.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and close out the first episode of Amigos Wrestling now.
Is that what that was? It's not the
Yeah.
first. We've actually done wrestling.
No, this is going to be the first one that is published as its own.
This is our third
episode
show
on YouTube.
Well, we're going to have. That's going to be rough to get subscribers to that one.
And so if you want to see more, leave a comment. And
I wouldn't check the box on that one.
and but anyway, thanks guys for hanging out with us in the chat, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios.